Hi, Yosh Rao here again from Field One Paintball. This video series is going to cover some general assembly tips for different components of your Field One force. Okay, now we are going to show you the quick and easy assembly of the OLED screen, bezel, power button, and OLED board area. To start with, remove the rubber grip panels, which I've already done. You can remove the OLED board and screen while the main board is in place, but there is definitely better access if you remove the main board first. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll get into removing the OLED board, the screen, the bezel, and the power button. We're going to start with our Phillips head screwdriver just to release the main board with these 3 screws. And we're also going to unplug our solenoid here from the main board. There we go. 2 more screws that hold the micro switch in place. Okay, so now we've pulled the 3 screws that are holding the force main board in place. We've unplugged the solenoid wire from the solenoid connector here, and we should be able to just slide our main board down and out of the force grip frame. Put that to the side. Now we're going to be able to very easily access and see, here's our solenoid with the wire harness here, and our OLED board with our bezel, button, and screen. Now, to remove these components, we're going to first remove this part, the bezel and button, by releasing 2 mounting screws on the inside of the grip frame. You can use a 5/64 size Allen wrench. I've found that using a ball end Allen wrench is extremely efficient, but you can definitely reach in there with the short end of your L and loosen these screws, and then kind of twirl them out with the long end of your L-shaped Allen wrench. So using your Allen wrench, you can reach into these cutouts in the OLED board to pull these screws out. And once you have both of these screws undone, you should be able to just drop or push the bezel and power button right out of there. So there's your power button. That fits right there in your bezel. And then if you look here, you'll see that the OLED screen is there, and you can basically just pivot that up. Now, keep in mind, this is still connected to the OLED board, and you don't want to just pull this straight out. This piece is actually, because it's connected, it's going to be removed from the grip frame while we remove the board here. All right, so now that we've got the bezel and power button removed, we are ready to uninstall our OLED board, which is connected to the OLED screen. So we're going to do that by loosening these 2 mounting screws with the same 5/64 tool. Pull those out, put them to the side so you don't lose them. And now you can see that this is basically floating in there, and you can pretty easily just drop this screen through the triangular shaped hole in the grip frame. So this hole was basically cut out in the shape to allow you to insert the screen from the side and then pivot the board into place. And the same would be true if you're disassembling this area. Now when you're handling this piece, you want to make sure that you handle it gently so that you don't damage this ribbon cable that goes from the OLED screen to the OLED board. Now, to fully disassemble this, we can remove the screen from the board. To do that, you just pull slightly on this little brown connector, And basically by opening it up, you allow that screen to slide very easily in and out of the connector. To reconnect your OLED screen, you would just slide it in and then close that little brown clip back up. And that's the look you're gonna get. So on this side, you've basically fully plugged it in. On this side, you can see just a small amount of that brown ribbon tape, and you've got your brown connector clip fully engaged now to hold this assembly together. All right, so now we're gonna install our new screen. So again, we're gonna open this connector here to unclip it. That'll allow us to pull the old screen out. Got our new screen here. As you can see, this new screen has a protective film over it, indicated by this green tab here. You want to make sure to pull that off before you install it. It's not going to get in the way of installation. It's not going to hurt anything. But if you install it with that protective film over it, it's actually going to look like you have a little crack right through the center of the screen. I don't know if you can see that, but best to pull that off so that it doesn't look confusing later. So now we've got our new screen, we've got our OLED board. We're going to slide it into place, and then we are going to close up that connector clip. Looks nice and straight on there. And we're going to feed this back in through the inside of the grip frame using that triangular hole. So now you've got your screen sticking out the back of the grip frame, you've got your OLED board in place there, and we're going to just carefully reattach that OLED board. And again, you know, the 5/64 Allen wrench that you have is adequate for this, but having a ball end 5/64 allows you to reach from both sides and gives you pretty easy access to the screws without risking stripping them or the hole. All right, so now we've got those two mounting screws snugged in there. We've got our OLED screen in place. Now the last part of this is just going to be simply reapplying the power button to the bezel and then securing the bezel over this screen to protect it. So we're going to drop our power button into the bezel. And I found that the easiest way to complete this step is to capture the screen with the bezel and then pivot it into place. And you basically get that to completely close up. Hold that in place with one finger and add your mounting screws again. Okay, we've got our old screen out of there. We've got our new screen in there. The power button gives us a nice click, which we like. That means it's gonna work. Now we're going to add our main board back into the grip frame and test it for function. So we're gonna slide the main board up and into the grip frame. Two screws at the top. All right, don't forget to plug your solenoid wire back into the main board on this side. Click into place. And now when we touch our power button our OLED screen lights up and shows full functionality. Okay, so next up we are going to change out the solenoid in your force. In a previous step we removed the grip panels and the main board. You remove the main board by simply using a Phillips head screwdriver and removing the 3 mounting screws from the main board and sliding it out. The next step we're going to take is to remove the force grip frame from the body. That'll give us access to the manifolds that hold the solenoid in place. So to do that, we're going to remove our nucleus engine, which gives us access to the rear grip frame mounting screw. Use a 1/8 Allen wrench to pull that screw. And then the other screw and mounting point is here in the trigger guard. Again, a 1/8 Allen wrench. And now we can separate the body from the grip frame. So now, as you can see, we've got the top of our solenoid here connected in through the grip frame. We've got our wire harness that connects to the main board. And we have 2 manifolds that sandwich the solenoid and hold it in place. To remove the solenoid, we're going to use our 5/64 Allen wrench in each manifold and unscrew a single mounting screw on each side. Once you have those 2 mounting screws disengaged, you can simply push the unit up in the grip frame, rock it slightly back to remove the red manifold, and rock it slightly forward to remove the black manifold. Now we can just slide the solenoid out the bottom of the grip frame, and we're ready for a replacement part. Now, before installing the new solenoid, we want to make sure that the O-rings on the manifold and the O-ring in the grip frame is in place. So there is a 1x3.5 millimeter O-ring inside the grip frame that sits underneath the red manifold or the input manifold. And you can see that's in place right there. And that only needs a tiny amount of grease. It's a static seal. It gets sandwiched between the red manifold and the grip frame and basically seals the main air passage from the HPR. The other O-rings that we want to check for and make sure they have a little bit of grease are the O-rings that seal between the manifold and the solenoids themselves. So you've got a 1x3 here in the red manifold and a 1x3 here in the black manifold, along with a 1x4.5. Okay, so to start with our reassembly, we're going to slide our solenoid up into the grip frame. We want the orientation of the solenoid wire to be towards the rear of the grip frame opening. And you can just hold the solenoid in place. Then we're going to first rock the solenoid back slightly to allow for us to attach the front or red manifold. Hold that in place. Then we can attach the rear or black manifold into place and sandwich the unit together. So now we're ready to push this unit back into place and secure it with our mounting screws. So just find its home. This is about how far the manifolds and solenoids should be sticking out above the top of the grip frame when they're fully seated into place. And take note here that across the top of both manifolds and the solenoid in the middle, it's just about flush between those 3 pieces. Now all we have to do is make sure that our mounting screws are in place and tighten them down accordingly. Now to complete the assembly, we're going to add our main board back into the grip frame. You can slide that up and into place. Use your mounting screws through the main board and tighten those down with a Phillips head screwdriver. Once you've got your main board and your solenoid attached into the grip frame, don't forget to reattach your solenoid wire into the connector on the main board. Now we've got a complete grip frame assembly here, and we are ready to reattach to our main body. As you can see, you've got connectors on the main board here that are going to connect in with the jumper board here. And we just use our grip frame mounting screws and a 1/8 Allen wrench to tighten those up and secure it into place. Now that we've got everything together, we are ready to turn on our marker and test it for function. Looking good. Okay, next up we are going to assemble the force body, which includes assembling the foregrip, the bridge and jumper board, as well as installing the bridge and jumper board assembly to the body with the bridge and the foregrip assembly. So to start with, we're going to attach our narrow ribbon cable into our battery board. There is a certain orientation that you need. Basically, you need these contacts, so the non-blue side, to connect to the copper contacts in the connector here. So we're going to, in order to put this in, we're going to open up our connector by pulling slightly on this clip. We're going to insert the wire just like that, and then we're going to close up the connector clip to hold that in place. So now we've got a good connection there. If you wanted to pull it out, you would open up the connector clip and you'd be able to easily remove the ribbon cable. Once we've got those two pieces joined, we are going to add them to our battery core. Now before we attach this piece, we want to make sure that our battery core mounting screws are in place. So those can just drop in. And then we're going to thread the narrow ribbon cable directly through the center hole there. All the way through so that the battery board can sit right on top there. So now we've got our mounting screws captured. We've got our thin ribbon wire harness connected to our battery board and threaded through the center. And now we can attach the unit together with these mounting screws. Now when you tighten this board to the battery core, you just want to make sure that it's well centered. There is, because of the size of the holes that the mounting screws go through, there is a little bit of wiggle room. If you just line up the edges on both sides, you're going to get a well centered board and it'll slide right into the foregrip. Alright, so now we've got this sub-assembly made. We're going to add this to our foregrip. Now, there's also a battery orientation on this board, and for the purposes of making this match up with our battery door once the full assembly is ready, we want to make sure that the negative terminal on the battery board goes towards the front of the force foregrip. So we're going to drop it into place with the negative terminal forward, and you'll see that that basically drops in. So now those mounting screws are poking through. You've got your cable, the full length of it, poking through as well. And we're ready to add that assembly to our reversal plate. So on the reversal plate, you'll see that there are two threaded holes that allow for the foregrip to be mounted. And then there's a through hole for the ribbon cable. So we're going to thread that through all the way. And the reversal plate will basically slide right into place there with the foregrip. Use a long-handled 1/8 Allen wrench, and you can attach that assembly through the battery board. So now we've got an assembly of our foregrip, our reversal plate, and our battery board and core all ready to go. We're going to set this aside for now and move on to the next part of the body. Okay, so up next we're going to assemble the jumper board, the wide ribbon cable, and the bridge board, and we're going to add that to the bottom of our force body. Now, when we assemble this lower section of the force body, it's easiest to have the eye covers and the eye boards removed. That allows lots of room to squeeze this eye bridge board into place and make sure that it sits properly on those two mounting pegs. To start with, we are going to add the wide ribbon cable to our L-shaped jumper board. Again, these connectors have a very small tensioning clip, so once we get the ribbon cable in there, we can push the clip in to engage, and that will lock the ribbon cable in place. And the same is true on the bridge board. Now we've got our two boards connected with a wide ribbon cable, and we're ready to add it to the force body. We just basically can set the L-shaped jumper board into place and screw it in place. At this time, we don't want to push the bridge board into the recess. We're going to wait on doing that so that we can connect our ribbon cable here to the bridge board and do all of that in one step. But right now, we're just going to attach the L-shaped jumper board onto the body with some board mounting screws. And if you see within the area that I'm working here, you can see there's 3 seals. Basically, these seals match up with the solenoid manifolds. So you've got input, and then you've got the 2 different air passages for when the solenoid activates here. These are 005s. This is a 007. They don't need that much grease. They should just have a thin coating, and that will adequately seal them to the manifolds. Now, another thing to take note of with this wide ribbon cable is the orientation of the cable. You can see that one side of the cable has this blue tape on it. That side should face the body. So if you get this fully attached to your body and you're about to add your foregrip here, and you can see the blue tabs on those tapes, that means you've got it in upside down. This is the correct orientation to actually connect these 2 boards. Okay, so now we've got our jumper board and our bridge board attached to the force body. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to connect fully to our foregrip, which contains the power source. To do that, give ourselves a little space here. Again, we're going to open the connector here on the bridge board and slide this narrow ribbon cable right into that connector. To hold it in place, close up the connector. You got a nice, good tensioning there. Now we can basically just hold these pieces close together, and you can push the board between the eyes or the bridge board into place. So if you can see in here, there's a recess, there's 2 pegs for that eye bridge board to sit on, and it'll basically secure in place, and you can add your bridge to hold everything down. Make sure that you don't pull too much on these ribbon cables, as you just don't want to pull hard enough for them to come out of the connectors. The connectors are pretty secure, but if you give that a sharp yank, it's probably going to come out of one end or the other, and you might have to start over. Now we've got our bridge in place. We're going to use a 5/64 Allen wrench to secure the bridge. Now we're almost done. So the last step is going to be securing our reversal plate and foregrip assembly to the bottom of the body. You can see that there are 2 mounting holes there ready to receive it. So as we join these pieces, they're already connected with the thin ribbon wire. We just want to make sure that as we join them, we aren't pinching the wire over the edge of the body. There is a large recess that allows for plenty of space for that thin ribbon cable to fit into, and you can kind of see that it naturally wants to fold up and hide in there. So you can join the pieces like that, use the mounting screw on the rear portion of the reversal plate to secure that in place. And then to access the front mounting screw in the reversal plate, we're actually now going to disengage the foregrip from the reversal plate using our long 1/8 Allen wrench. You'll see that these parts can come apart. Now, I can pull this a little further apart and I can expose more of that thin ribbon cable, but the most efficient way to do this is to not pull these apart too far so that you don't have to feed as much ribbon cable back into the reversal plate. So now we're going to add our mounting screw into the front of the reversal plate, get that nice and secure, and we can now remount our foregrip. As you're mounting your foregrip, you want to make sure that this thin ribbon cable is not going to get pinched between the foregrip, the battery core, or the reversal plate. So you can just kind of easily feed it back into place by pushing the thin ribbon cable back into that center hole on the reversal plate until you have the 2 pieces pretty closely connected, and it should just drop right into place. Use your long handled 1/8 Allen wrench to secure the foregrip to the reversal plate. And your force body is ready for eye covers and a grip frame. Thanks for watching our videos. If you have any other questions about your Field One force, feel free to contact us through the Field One website or give us a call at the Field One Service Center.